Hey, Drive Tribe, Migz here, and I'm with Hurley Haywood.
Yeah, you got that right. Good.
Oh, hey, how you doing?
Starting off on the right foot.
I'm starting off on the right foot. And Sean Cridland.
That's correct. Yeah, Sean Cridland, co-author and publisher of the Hurley Haywood book.
Also linebacker for...
I was a ski racer, never played football.
Ski racer.
Downhill.
Downhill?
Speed skier, top speed was 126 miles an hour back in 1986. I hold the record on the Bonneville Salt Flats for training on top of a car through the mile at 162, a record I set in 1985, which still stands.
Hurley, I'm going to have to interview you later. I'm sorry.
The man is totally nuts.
It was a joke. I didn't know it was going to lead into something. This is why I do interviews. It's more interesting than cars. Hurley, for those that this is the first, actually, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, for those that it's the first time meeting you, can you give us a little background, a little history in your racing career?
Well, my racing career started in 1969. Peter Gregg and myself went to a 6-hour World Championship race up in Watkins Glen. I had sort of one race under my belt, and Peter said, I said, how are we going to run in a World Champion race with, I don't even have a license? He said, don't worry, we'll get you a license through NASCAR, $20 in the mail. I had a Grand National license. I applied for an FIA grade B, and that entitled me to race at Watkins Glen. And we ended up winning our class, beat all the Corvettes and Camaros, factory cars. And then I was sitting on Cloud 9. I got my draft notice, and it was shipped over. This was in July, and I was shipped over into Vietnam in November. So was over there for a year, came back, rotated out of the Army in Fort Lee, Virginia, and then Peter Gregg and myself won the very first IMSA race at VIR. And then it's been an amazing trip ever since then. I've won 5 24-hour Daytona wins overall, 3 Le Mans wins overall, 2 Sebrings, 5 championships, all under the wheel of or behind the wheel of a Porsche. So it's been a good run.
Wow, that's really interesting. I mean, you didn't tell us everything that's in the book, did you?
No, there's
Okay. I'm going to save some.
The book is 7 pounds, so
How many pages?
600 and
420 pages,
600.
659 photos.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Oh, I'm interested in seeing this book. We're going to post the link to where you can purchase the book online, so that's great. I see you at many events. I think the first event that I was introduced to you, you were actually driving me in a GT3 RS at the Navy base just down the road from here.
Yeah, Mayport. Bill always runs a rally, and the Mayport speed runs are a stop on the rally route. And it's a highlight. Everybody loves doing it. This year we kind of got a little bit crowded because of the work they were doing on the runway. But in the past, we've run the whole entire runway. So we were up to speeds approaching 200 miles an hour with the 911s, like a GT3. We were getting up about 180. So it was a thrill ride for people that never been that fast before in a car.
It was amazing. It was outstanding. So the next time we met up, I believe, was at Festivals of Speed Orlando, and that was the first time I saw you with the book. You must have released it around that time, or?
Actually, the release was done a year ago.
Oh, okay.
At this event.
Oh.
And we had really record sales. Everything was really going great. And then the sales have been steady the whole year. And our run was 4,000 books.
Okay.
And we're down to a couple hundred left. So we've been doing a good job.
So it's like a limited edition type?
Well, we'll make the decision a little bit later. I think we should be out of books by midsummer. Okay. And then we'll make the decision whether we want to, have another run of 1,000 books or whatever it is. Probably won't do 4,000, but maybe 1,000.
If you want your book, you better get it now because there might not be many left. Plus, they're making the decision, so excellent. Then after that, we met again at the Rolex 24. So You're all over the place. What were you doing at the Rolex?
Usually, I'm hired by. I have a contract with the PR department of Porsche, so they use me in a lot of their European media that come over. I've got 5 wins there, so I've been there a long time. In 2012 was when I officially retired from the professional seat, and that marked my 40th start in the 24-hour race. So that's a lot of races and a lot of knowledge to transfer over to their journalists. So it's a good relationship.
Good. What car were you driving on those wins?
All of them were in Porsche. So started off with with the wins that were 911s, then 935s, and then 962s.
Okay.
So GT cars and then prototypes.
Great. Excellent. So now, Sean, tell us a little bit of what you're doing. How are you part of the team?
Well, I published and co-wrote the book with Hurley. A couple of years ago, I was trying to do a different book on Hurley's mentor, Peter Gregg, and I had come a certain amount of ways with that book, and it wasn't getting traction. I called Hurley to say, "Hey, thanks for your help," and he said, "Well, nobody's done a book on me," so we shifted gears. And off we went to do the Hurley book, which was a fantastic adventure. In terms of talking with Hurley, interviewing him regularly, then talking with his co-drivers, his team owners, and various other people as the process went along. And the book kind of took on a life of its own. And as I mentioned, the book has 659 photos, which we thought was really necessary because Hurley had such a rich and varied career. We wanted to be able to tell the full story.
Now, did you have all those photos at your fingertips, or did you have to go into some? I mean, how do you get a hold of all those?
Well, that's a whole story unto itself, because initially the plan was that I would write the book and we would hand it off to a publisher. When the time came, the timing just wasn't right. We wanted to make sure that we had the book done for last year at this time, and I just looked at the timeline and said, "Let's go now, and I'll do it." And so I went from being writer to photo acquisitions manager, which meant, and with the deadline that we had, it meant that for about 5 months I worked 20-hour days, talking to professional photographers, agencies, museums, collections, amateur photographers, basically anybody that I could find that might have been at this race or that race or another. But we found them. We found what we needed, and it was a great process. Being the first book that I had both written and published, I learned an immense amount. And now we're on to the next project.
Well, gentlemen, I have to ask you a question. Favorite car, favorite drive, favorite song?
You mean race cars? Or
Any car you want.
Well, as a race car, my favorite car was the 936, which is what Jackie X drove on the field this morning.
Okay.
Jackie and I won Le Mans in a car very similar to that. So that is really a beautiful balance of power and road holding. It's a lot of fun to drive that car, and it also really is beautiful looking. So that's on the race car. On the street car side, anything that Porsche makes. One of the great things about Porsche is, the next year's car is always the better. Dr. Porsche was asked what his favorite car is, and his reply was next year's. So that is kind of how I feel. Every year they get better, and Porsche makes wonderful cars, and we're very diverse. So you can drive, an SUV type car, which is the Cayenne and the Macan. You can drive sports cars, which is the 911 and the Boxsters and the Caymans, or you can drive, a sedan, which is the Panamera. So each one has this very distinct feel, but all of them have that traditional legacy of a Porsche.
Great. How about song?
And the song, kind of the one I like to drive to is Only the Strong Survive.
Okay.
And but I'm very diverse in the music that I listen to. So I like listening to opera. I like listening to soul and rock and the whole nine country.
Depends on the mood.
Yeah, depends on the mood.
Roger that. You don't always want to eat the same food all the time, right?
Right.
What about yourself?
Favorite car. My favorite car that I've had, that I really enjoyed immensely while I had it, was a Porsche 964, which I bought bone stock, and by the time I sold it, I'll just say it was altered. It was still an all-wheel drive car, but it had a full cage, and it weighed 2,500 pounds, and it was a beast. In fact, people called it the beast because it used to spit fire. Favorite road, favorite drive. I lived in Aspen for many years, and I spent a lot of time on Independence Pass between Aspen and Leadville. Really steep, windy, narrow road. That's my absolute favorite road ever, for driving, for riding my bicycle, for anything. That's my best road. And I'd have to be driving my car on that road, listening to the Beatles from their Abbey Road album, I Want You.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for spending time today. Shout out. We'll see everybody on Drive Tribe. And again, appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Hurley.
Thanks for coming by.